I'm quitting my $350,000 job at Google to move home with my parents. What's the grand plan? Well, I'm starting by trying to make my first $1,000 online. So how did we get here? Let's start in 2021. During this time, I was playing WoW 12 plus hours a day, slacking off at work, and I was over 190 pounds and gaining weight. I remember playing WoW on my primary monitor, and meanwhile I would watch self-improvement videos like David Goggins on my second monitor. At some point, my friend got a job offer from Tesla. I don't know about you guys, but I was very ego and fear driven because in my head I attached my identity to like where I went to school, how much money I made, where I worked, my rank in World of Warcraft and League of Legends. And when he got that job, I got so scared of being left behind. Meanwhile, I was leading a guild in WoW and treating it like my full-time job. And that triggered me to uninstall WoW, and I just prepared for interviews full-time for 5 months. And at the end of this 5 months, I got 5 offers from different companies, one of them being Google. And I remember when I got that job offer, I felt so validated, like I had become the good Asian son all of a sudden. And I truly believed that all of the problems I had been solved. And for a while, I felt that way. I went to the office and ate all the free food and even got like the annual massage that you get for free there. Joining Google was one of the greatest moments of my life. And it did solve a lot of my problems, especially money ones. But the personal issues that I had before Google still remain. I mentioned earlier about the ego and the fear, these issues that I've had for as long as I can remember. And after getting into Google, I built my entire identity on top of this brand. And I clearly remember having thoughts like, I am defined by Google. I'm defined by the fact that I make over $200,000 a year. My life is justified now. And I remember in the 2024 when layoffs started that I felt this deep-seated fear like who I was in jeopardy. I remember during that time I would write in my journal that I thought I was going to marry my current girlfriend at the time. We planned to move in together during the middle of that year, but I clearly remember when that time started getting closer, I felt this creeping sense of dread within me. And if I had to describe the feeling, it felt like my life had been built on this house of cards that was ready to topple at any moment. And right before we moved in together, I just knew that I wasn't ready for this. And it was after this breakup that the issues that I had suppressed for so long finally spilled over. And so during this time period, I was so desperate for answers. I started doing therapy. I started training for this half marathon. I flew all the way to Canada in order to do this 10-day meditation retreat. And I remember at this meditation retreat, my ego had completely dissolved. Like, I am not my company's title. Like, I am not how much money I make. Like, I am not how tall I am or how good I look. And it made me realize that this entire life I had built was out of fear, chasing validation. I feared disappointing my parents. I feared being alone. Every decision I made was to avoid failure. And I want to say that it wasn't Google specifically that was the problem, it was that I was living in misalignment. And after realizing this truth, the irony is, I almost wish that I hadn't discovered it. Like I could take the blue pill and just go back to living a comfortable life. But I had realized the truth and it felt like Pandora's box had been opened. And every day I would try to show up to work and do my tasks, and I just couldn't bring myself to focus at all. And that led to this vicious cycle of self-hatred and knowing that every day I was living a life that was inauthentic to myself. That growing feeling of feeling out of control of my life eventually manifested in suicidal thoughts. And that is when I realized that I have nothing to lose anymore. And so I took the leap. I filed for leave. I sent out the email to my team. I told my manager. A month after I did that, I could not believe what happened. After taking some time to clear my head, I wanted to build something. A SaaS product. And I was focused mainly on how can I earn my first dollar, and that's how SwipeIQ.io was born. In my head, I thought that people would be willing to pay for an AI dating profile analysis. And so I built a landing page and got 14 waitlist signups, and I thought I had struck gold. And so I committed to building the MVP, which was a huge mistake, which I will talk about. And so I spent 3 weeks building and learning, coding the site, buying the domain, designing the logo and other assets, setting up the Stripe integrations. And when I launched it to the waitlist and promoted it on Reddit for the first time, I got 0 users. And it was then that I learned this fundamental lesson that unless someone pays for your service, you are not validated in your SaaS. And this whole time I was trying this build in public thing, so I was posting on X 10 times a day, trying to gain an audience so that I can distribute SwipeIQ. And by the end of the month, I only had 70 followers. And at this point, I had told my parents that I was quitting my job and that I wanted to move home. And they started freaking out and telling me, why would you leave something that is so good? And at this point, I only had 60 days of my leave left. That inner voice and that fear started creeping in, telling me I can still turn back, I don't need to leave Google. At the point, I knew I was still operating out of fear. I wanted to make videos, but I was too scared to fail in public. And the days were just passing by and I felt like I wasn't getting anything done. And so that's why I had this idea to make this post-it calendar of 50 days so that every day I would have to physically feel the day passing by. And so because I wanted to confront this fear, to overcome this fear that had driven my entire life this far, I committed to taking a daily video for 50 days of my life until I quit Google. So I took a picture of the calendar and then I filmed my 2 first videos. The first one was why I'm quitting Google and the second one was the day 1 of the challenge. And so I posted it on X and then I posted it on Instagram, and I remember there was no response, but I felt so good because it felt like I was finally steering my own life. And I remember on day 2 of the challenge, I was at the gym and I didn't even realize that Instagram automatically cross-posted to Threads. And when I checked Threads, I had over 2,000 followers overnight. And I remember going to the bathroom because I was so overwhelmed with these feelings that I just couldn't even process, from joy to excitement to fear to pressure. I couldn't even think what it was. And I just had to sit in the bathroom for a second to just calm myself down. Like, I literally remember I couldn't feel my body. I remember literally sprinting home and just sitting at my computer without even showering because I wanted to make Swipe IQ free for all my new audience. And I remember at this point I was so convinced that now I'm gonna work on Swipe IQ hard and document it. And then the next day the quitting Google reel went semi-viral on Instagram and my audience grew even more. And that was what ended up kicking off a 3-day hypomanic episode where I was just laser focused on producing the content for this challenge. Because I had realized that the leverage that I had now was not in Swipe IQ, which was a completely unvalidated idea. It was in this validated idea of this documented challenge. And so here we are today, the end of week 1. I feel like this week for me was just a constant tug of war of my identity between being a SaaS builder and also like a content creator who documents this journey. And so through this week of absolute madness, I've outlined my principles moving forward. If you guys want to learn things like how I achieved getting a job at Google, how I went from couch potato to marathoner, how I went from fat to fit, mental health, I will gladly teach. But when it comes to redefining yourself, building in public, I'm not a teacher, I'm just here to go first and to document. If you want to follow this whole journey, find out what works, what fails, and what I'm learning along the way, subscribe. I also post daily updates on Instagram, and for the deeper stuff, join the email list. So this is week 1 of 7 done. Still just the beginning for me. And maybe for you too.